ongoing list of worms takes a turn today. I suspect that even worm haters will tolerate this one, as it hardly lives up to the expectation conjured up by our brains when someone says worm. That image, I suspect, is of a long tube with a mouth on one end and an anus on the other. A simplistic, efficient design. Even I have fallen victim to this generalization, as I mentioned in a previous video that worms have simplified bodies. However, Stephen Jay Gould put Dinomischus on the list of worms studied by Simon Conway Morris. Perhaps he did not mean to categorize Dinomischus as a worm, and rather included any creatures studied by Simon Conway Morris at this time, referring to the complete list as worms for simplicity's sake. But after further analysis, I say that Dinomischus can be offered a membership to the Vermes Club, and I will explain why, but first, some etymology. Dino comes from the Greek word dinos, which means goblet, and miscus is from mykos, meaning stem. So Dinomischus is a wine glass. I don't actually care much for wine, so I have filled my goblet with sparkling pear from IKEA. Much like the other specimens that intrigued Conway Morris, Dinomischus was discovered by Walcott in the 1910s, but was not formally described until the 70s. Few specimens have been found, the largest a mere 28 millimeters in length, mostly taken up by the stem. A crown of bracts makes up the cup of the goblet, or the calyx, comparable to a flowering plant. These appendages filter prey from the water column. You may now be thinking that this does in fact sound like a worm. Mouth on one end, anus. Where is the anus? The bottom of the stalk is attached to the sediment, so where does the gut lead? Unlike most worms, Dinomischus' digestive tract actually forms a U shape. The mouth leads down into the stomach, then back up to release excrement. This physiology resembles that of the phylum Entoprocta, not to be confused with Ectoprocta, the bryozoans, who can look quite similar but with the anus located below the calyx rather than within it. The name Ectoprocta literally means outside anus, while Entoprocta means inside anus. Entoprocta, as you can see, bear a striking resemblance to Dinomischus, with the same internal and external structures. This appears to be an open and shut case, the simplest of Cambrian classification yet, but researchers still aren't so sure. Apparently, the fronds of Dinomischus are more rigid than those of the extant Entoprocts. This seemed a bit nitpicky to me at first. I mean, even if the flexibility is different between the two, could they not still share a common ancestor, considering all of the matching characteristics? But then again, animals convergently evolve the same body type all the time, so the existence of two identical creatures from different phyla with slightly different tentacles is plausible, though not the most satisfying answer. But the most important factor to remind yourself of when judging the opinions of paleontologists is that the goal is to determine the evolutionary relationships using phylogeny. So even if an animal seems to obviously match one category more than all the others, even the slightest differences can place it just outside of that category rather than within it. This distinction becomes even more important as fossils continue to be discovered. Fossils thought to actually be Entoprocs from the Cambrian have been found in China, known as Cotyledon tylodes, which are of larger size than their extant relatives, a common pattern between Cambrian and modern counterparts. So perhaps Cotyledon is a better match. The case of Dinomischus illustrates how even seemingly obvious answers are to be considered with scrutiny in the field of paleontology. Accepting the easiest solution, shoving your specimen into that box and shutting it until the end of time, is no longer an acceptable way to study fossils. And even when we have a near perfect explanation, we must remind ourselves that we cannot know for sure. Perhaps this makes a case for the development of time travel. Or maybe we humans just aren't meant to know certain things. Thank you all so much for listening to my ramblings and supporting my channel. I've been kind of busy actually going outside and doing some traveling this summer, but I promise I have more content cooking, and I hope to get some more things posted soon. Bye. Scoot over.